Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Three Men in a Football podcast. Hello, Daz. All right, Tom?
Hi, boys. How are we?
All right. Oh, you put me off, Darren. You didn't say all right, Thomas. All right, Simon.
Hi, Thomas. Hi, Simon. How are we?
Yeah, I was going
to
to
make him feel better.
Yeah.
Having a good week so far?
Yeah, not bad at all. We finish next Friday for school, so I'm looking forward to the summer holidays.
You've not had enough time off as it is.
I wish. Don't you start on this podcast.
Oh my God, Darren, you've been off since March, and now you're finishing.
I'd like to officially put him as resignation, Simon.
2 men in football again.
Yeah, 4 men in a football.
So the football's been decent this week, although Liverpool have not been fantastic.
I thought they were brilliant yesterday, first half, and then second half the pace dropped off.
I actually turned off a couple of games because, the City game was just boring because they were battering them.
That was boring. 5-0.
You know, it was just. There's no fight there. I nearly turned off the Villa game as well, for a completely different reason.
Yeah, I did actually think Liverpool played all right, but I certainly didn't think they were at the races in front of goal. They
don't need to be. At the end of the day, they've won the league. They don't need to be. They just need to finish the games.
We've got to be careful with the expectations of them now, given what's gone on. But it's because they were so good, you want them to at least go out on a high and win as many games as possible. I'm not bothered about the records, to be honest.
No.
But I want them to play well. And they played better yesterday. It was a better game. I like Bernie did a decent job. Dyche again has pulled it out the bag. But actually, some of the games this weekend, there's been some decent football. But it'd be nice to see Liverpool get a couple of wins before the end of the season.
To be fair, I thought Pope was outstanding again.
Oh, brilliant, money.
Yeah. And over social media, it's been like he should be England's number one, blah, blah, blah. And I just think he's outstanding at the moment. Absolutely outstanding.
Well, if you remember, we talked about him a lot on the live yesterday. That was good.
Yeah. Really good.
All right, so today we have a guest on the podcast, Greg McLean, who has been around Liverpool amateur football all of his life, got a really interesting story. Looking forward to getting him on.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, he does a couple of different roles in football, doesn't he, in amateur football? And so I'm going to see what he has to say.
He's involved in loads. I mean, he's run teams, works for the FA, is the secretary for a league. I mean, God knows how he does it all.
Oh, apparently, doesn't he work with his dad, manage a team or something like that as well? Yeah. Can you imagine our dad, Simon? Can you imagine?
Mate, that'd be painful. Thomas has to deal with my dad every week. I don't know how he does it.
That's brilliant. Your dad's the wheels, makes it's wheels of industry.
Yeah, turning the wheels of football industry.
He keeps them on the straight and narrow.
Right, let's get him on. This should be fun. Hello, Greg, and welcome to the Three Men in the Football podcast. How are you doing, mate?
Hello, Simon. Good to see you. How are we, gents?
Morning, Greg. How are we? Good?
Morning, mate.
Not too bad.
So we were just having a quick chat about how lockdown's been. How have you been dealing with it, mate?
Yeah, it's just gone on and on, hasn't it? It's just it didn't seem to be an end in sight at one point. And I think, going to the supermarket's almost like a day out. What else is there to do? You should vary it up. I like to go to different supermarkets each week just to see different people.
I sent the girl on cashier 17 a birthday card.
It's definitely
that's your best joke over the whole of the podcast.
Yeah, but that's only because he's stolen it from you.
I didn't stoop that low.
It's definitely weird, and it's been weird as footy's come back as well. We've obviously talked about it quite a lot, but that lead in from the German football then into the Premier League, and then how the Premier League's gone, it's been really odd.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you're getting used to a totally different way of life. I mean, I'm a season ticket holder at Anfield, so it's strange not even being able to watch, go to the game and watch Liverpool live in person, especially obviously after what's happened with the title win. So it's just been as a society, we just had to adapt quite a lot, haven't we? Really?
It's
very quickly.
Simon, I didn't realise he was a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, but Daz, just one thing to remember. So we were getting some crap yesterday on Facebook about us being, it's more about Thomas being Liverpool biased. But Greg is only our second Liverpool fan that we've had on.
I'll give you that.
Man City, Portsmouth, Sunderland. Well, then again, Tom didn't really want to pick a team, did he?
No, he ended up. Yeah.
You forced him into it.
It was like Robbie Keane, every team he joined.
This is
big fan of that club.
yeah.
All right, Greg. So listen, we got you on because there's loads that we want to talk to you about, and Stevie Stewart was bigging you up as being a brilliant guest.
I'll give him that 20 quid later.
Yeah. So you and I had a chat on text, and you were telling me what you're involved in now in terms of football, but you wear loads of hats. Give us a clue on what you do.
Yeah, so it's a live and breathe football, really. 9 to 5 day job. Work at Cheshire FA. So I'm executive support to the management team over at Cheshire FA. I've run a team for the last 10 years, which we'll get into a bit more later on, St Margaret's Old Boys. So that's a team that I run. I also am assistant secretary, but soon to be secretary of the Liverpool Old Boys League, which will be a league you might be familiar with.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been a long-standing league in Liverpool, and also referee. So Thomas, you'll no doubt love me by the end of this podcast.
Yeah,
you should have brought your cards on. I would love it if you give him a yellow card.
Yeah,
That's the first, Darren.
That's an eclectic mix of hats that you wear in there, mate.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think it gives you a good understanding, I think, and an appreciation of, especially working in a county FA, gives you an appreciation of what the volunteers do, what the work involved in running a team, running a league, and also obviously from a referee's point of view, when I'm refereeing, I sort of referee it how I want my team's games to be refereed. So you try and let the game flow. Don't be stopping and starting the game all the time. Give it an understanding about what the players. You might have a player he's had a bad week. At work, it's amateur football at the end of the day. He's taking out on the referee. Look, have a word, calm it down. Just have a think about what you're doing. So I think it gives you a good appreciation.
So you've refereed Thomas then. So Greg, here's one for you. Who would you say is the best referee in the Cheshire FA when Stevie Stewart was there?
There was this Irish guy. To be fair, I mean, I've known Steve for a long time. And Steve, I mean, you all appreciate Steve as a referee. Steve is the best amateur league referee I've seen. In terms of his understanding, his game management, and I think there's obviously every referee has their own style. That's the joy of football. Everyone's interpretation is different. You only have to watch the Premier League to see that. The referee on the pitch gives a penalty and the VAR referee, doesn't agree with it or vice versa.
We don't bring VAR up after Villa. No. Just to let you know.
But I mean, Steve's a top referee. Absolutely.
He was outstanding when he went, think about when the games that we've had him, Daz, over the years, and we've had him at the kind of top end in some of the really big cup games we've played around the Northwest. And then we've also had him in some of the old boys games as well. He's outstanding. He's absolutely brilliant.
I quite like the Billy Birch School referee where he doesn't come out of the centre circle and he smokes during the game. Is that a style you would condone, Greg? Or?
I mean, I appoint the referees in the Old Boys League as well. Another hat that I wear. But no, I mean, I've put that on my list of things to not, a non-smoking policy during match play.
Billy Birch is brilliant. He's constantly carrying a Bex around with him and a flag.
What about the guy that comes, the referee, I forgot his name now. He's really old, comes on the scooter.
Oh, he's brilliant.
And he offers you out. He offers you out halfway through the game. And he must be touching 90. Touching 90, and he offers you out.
Yeah.
It's a thankless task, though. Yeah. It's a thankless task, though, isn't it? Being a referee, especially in amateur football. Although we remember some of the referees that have refereed us over the years, but we've had that many, and you forget them because generally it's just something that's got to be difficult to do when you're getting that much crap from each team.
Yeah, it is, and I think. I mean, my sort of character trait as a person generally is sort of a people pleaser, so I've probably picked the wrong job, really. You're giving offside, and then you're like, please don't hate me. You give this an offside.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I like to have a discussion beforehand with the referee. It says, when my hand goes up, it's just give it. It's easier for everyone.
Yeah.
You're not joking, he does.
That's the way he plays football. But I think that the mix of running a team, refereeing, being involved in the FA, that's got to give you a very different appreciation for the kind of pressures that people are going through in each one of those roles, because they've all got their own challenges, haven't they?
I've ran a club side. I mean, I set up my first team when I was 15 with my dad. So I've always sort of been like, I've enjoyed football administration and that side of things. But it's a lot of work. I mean, when you're just a player and you turn up, you don't actually realise what's gone on in the background that week, even to get 11 players on a pitch. You've got all the things from, sorting the referee, making sure the pitch is available. You've got to contact all your players, make sure you've got a squad. You've got to sort the kits out. You've got to give the kits out, all the medical equipment, the water bottles, all those things that go in. And it's all done on a voluntary basis. And I think sometimes you can sort of overlook the amount of work that goes into the grassroots volunteers to keep our game going, as long as it has been and as strong as it is, particularly in Liverpool. I mean, we all know how strong the amateur scene is in Liverpool. But that's down to the volunteers. At the end of the day, without the volunteers, we wouldn't have a game.
I agree, Greg. And what used to wind me up was, I've run a team for a number of years, you'd have lads that didn't want to take the nets down after the game, and you put so much work in all week.
Yeah.
You might have got a win or a defeat. You maybe, on your knees, absolutely gutted, or jumping through the, to the skies, celebrating, and they don't want to put the nets down. You're like, you're here to play. And then you're struggling to get your 5 or subs off them. I'm like,
absolutely. 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 Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Do you play on the new hub sites?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Your game?
Yeah.
The nets are already up. It's great.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's one less worry.
Yeah, on our Saturday team, we have an enforcer who comes along and gets the money off you.
Right.
And it's Simon's dad.
So we're lucky. We play for, Darren and I, and Thomas as well has been involved, but Darren and I have played for 2 main clubs during our adult life, one of them being Old Zavs and the other being South Liverpool. And they're both amazing clubs, loads of volunteers, loads of help. The amount of work that goes into keeping those clubs going has been amazing. And we've got a lot closer to that as we've got older. I remember turning up for 10 years and not really worrying about things like nets and stuff like that, because it was already done. I mean, when we were playing for the first team, you just get pampered a little bit. And then as you start moving down the teams or, into the vets, then all of a sudden it becomes very different. Yeah. You're paying
5
subs
minutes before kick-off.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's not up.
Yeah. You've done no warm-up.
Yeah, we used to warm up quite a bit.
Yeah, let's not talk about warm-ups though, because I've seen a video of Greg doing real warm-ups. Not like ours.
Did he have cones?
Yeah. They had like a tracksuit on and everything. It was brilliant.
It'll never take off that. It'll never take off.
It's one of the things we used to play on, Greg, when we were at the Zabs, and we'd go away and play in the is it the Junior Cup or what's the Saturday Cup? The Saturday
there's the Junior and the Intermediate.
Yeah, so either one of them, and we used to love the away days, but we'd always turn up, and we'd be a gang of scallies from Liverpool, and we'd turn up and they'd be set up with cones, tracksuits on, half an hour warm up before the game. And one team, one of the best stories is we turned up and the team had a gold Man United kit on, and Billy Birch's team talk was, "I've just been outside and they're wearing a gold Man United kit." And that was it. And we battered them. Absolutely battered them. They'd done a good warm-up though.
Well, that's it.
So when you were, you talked before about setting up a team at 15. I mean, we've been involved in around the running of teams for a while, but I can't imagine what that's like. So how did you get involved how were you involved in football before that? And then how did you get to a point where you were setting up a team with your dad?
Yeah, so I think for me, I mean, I had a football at my feet from the moment I could sort of stand up, pretty much. My dad, I didn't have a choice whether I was going to like football or not, I mean, ironically, my first toy was a hairdryer. So my dad wasn't very happy about that. He was saying to me, "Well, what are you doing? What are you doing buying him that?" Yeah. But yeah, I think for me, first sort of football memory was probably 98 World Cup, France 98. And obviously the goal that sticks out is the Michael Owen sort of goal for Argentina. I remember just sitting there, I was only 6 at the time, but it's one of those things that just sticks in your mind. And I think from then on, it was just, playing football in the garden every day, rain, sleet or shine. More so rain, obviously, in Liverpool. But yeah, I think that just went on then. So I sort of played kids football. But kids football has changed a lot. I mean, I'm saying back in my day, that was 20 years ago.
We say that a lot on this programme, I wouldn't worry.
So, I mean, it was 11-a-side at like age 11.
Yeah.
And it was a bit stupid, to be totally honest. You know, the goals. I mean, you're talking kids are like that high and looking up the size of the goal. I mean, I didn't play for a great team. It was in the I think it was the Anfield Junior League, playing on Stanley Park, and we used to get beat 14-15-0 every week, which wasn't fun. So when we scored a goal, we'd write to the Echo. We get a picture in, the goal scorer.
Brilliant.
Wouldn't mention the other team's, 14 goals, but mention our one. So I sort of drifted away, sort of 13, 14, and then me and my mates just in school saying, we should set up a footy team. So me and my dad sort of chatted about it. And we had a look into it, obviously what goes into setting up a team. There's quite a bit. Obviously, you need your funding, you need your kits, all your affiliations, all that sort of thing. So eventually we got it off the ground. We set it up. It was under 16s and under 17s. It was we did it for 2 years. And it was literally just me and my schoolmates. So it was a great experience. It was almost like it was a good way of getting a look into what actually running a football team is like, really. Made sure all the books were in order, finance, all that side of things, and the general run of the team, run a website, little things like that. But it was really enjoyable. Again, unfortunately, we didn't have much luck with results in that team either. Because by under 16, you're playing against teams who've been together for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
The Bootles of this world, and you're just like, I'm going to hope.
Yeah, so well run as well, Andy. Good young players.
Absolutely.
Do you know the best thing about this is that, Daz, you'll appreciate this. He's just been talking about running a team at 16, 17 and talking about websites. When you and me were 16 and 17, there's no websites around.
No. I was going to mention the old video recorder at one point, but of course I'll leave that.
There's no phones then, was there?
You used to get a phone call on the landline about the game on a Saturday.
Or phone your boss with 10 pence. You go round to the phone at the bottom of the street. I can
Did
play
they have
tomorrow.
the pink echo? Did they have the pink echo?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
My dad's told me about the pink echo.
Saturday used to come out.
Yeah,
it was brilliant. The pink echo was great because you got more of a spread on the amateur game. But going back to the phone, Daz, and the 10 pence, my mum had a payphone when we were kids in the house.
No.
Yeah, because the only bill that she paid was the phone bill, and she had a payphone in the house, and we had to pay.
Just explain to Greg what a payphone is.
It wasn't one of them where you had to dial like that.
Simon, she still had that when I got with Rachel.
Yeah, I know.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's very much a family podcast, this, Greg, as you can see. But you think about the complexities of running a team. You just mentioned some of it before, all the basics of getting a team together and stuff. But what you don't think about is the financial elements and stuff. You're now involved in running leagues and working at the FA. That's got to have given you a good grounding to understand the work that goes on behind the scenes as well. Absolutely.
And I think obviously this is going to be a difficult couple of years in terms of the funding from the FA and in the light of what's happened. But I think clubs deserve a lot of credit for a lot of it's self-funded. Players pay the subs, they pay a signing on fee. Usually you try and get a sponsorship. And without those local businesses that usually do support football clubs, we would have difficulty because, you'll well know yourselves, pitch hire isn't cheap, kits aren't cheap, you've got the referees' fees. So, it's a lot of work that goes into just running a club.
Yeah, so some teams now have direct debits for parents to go right to the account of the club.
Yeah.
And I just find that unbelievable. It's like when we started playing back in the day, it was, I can't remember actually paying it because it was all sorts of, you just went and played.
Well, you probably did things like paying for kits and stuff like that, didn't you, individually?
But even the kids. Yeah, but even the kits, now they go home with the player.
Yeah.
I can remember my dad having a bag and it'd be in our bath on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. Now the kids all come in the kits and take the kids home, and I find it bizarre.
Yeah.
And so is your dad always into football, Greg?
Yeah, he was very similar to me, really. He's played footy from a kid right the way through. Played obviously on the amateur scene in Liverpool. up to, I think he was playing until he was about 40. I don't know if you remember the Formers League.
Yeah, we were.
That's
we
no
played in
longer
it.
about now. Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he played. They had a Liverpool supporters club branch that had a pretty good side back in the day. It was about 15 years ago. So he played for them up till he was about 40. So he's always had that involvement in football. He's watched Liverpool all over Europe. All over down the years. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those sort of hand-me-downs. Really, it's always been something we've done together.
Yeah,
Sorry, go on, Si.
Go on, Daz.
How is your coaching style and your dad's coaching style different, or your management style? Because Simon and I have dads who keep telling us we're not quite good enough. So I couldn't imagine. I love my dad, but I couldn't imagine running a team with him. Simon, what about you?
I think my dad generally was not great at the team talk and stuff. He ran teams, he managed teams for a while, and he picked the team, but he wasn't really that excited about going in and doing a team talk and talking tactics, but loved being around the game. And that's why it's worked so well with Thomas managing the team and my dad being his backup, because then he doesn't have to get involved in any of the difficult decisions. But then he can tell us afterwards that we're not good enough, or Thomas has picked the wrong team. But yeah, that's got to be difficult. The dynamic's got to be weird.
Absolutely. I'm not someone for conflict or arguing, but my dad's the one person I'll argue with when it comes to football management styles. He'll probably watch this and he'll be going, we definitely don't agree on a lot of things. He's the manager and I'm the assistant, which usually you look to your assistant for backup. But I'm usually telling them, well, why don't we do it this way? Or, why don't we, you can't say that, chill out. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, players have changed over, in that time. So obviously when my dad was playing, it was, you got a bollocking off the manager and you just got on with it. And it's like that in the professional game now. You look at like Jose Mourinho, it's almost like his style's dying out. Yeah. You've got to be more of an arm around the shoulder manager. I think that's what my sort of coaching style is. Whereas my dad's like, well, he needs telling, so I'm going to tell him. So it's one of them where I think having the balance of the two is what makes it work well.
Yeah, you can imagine that works well together.
It's quite funny because I've got Joe, Simon's dad, as my assistant. And I will often go up to him and say, Joe, what do you think? It's not working very well here. And his reply usually is, he's shite, he's shite, he's shite, and he's shite. And I said, yeah, but what should we do? We'll sort it out because they're all shite. That's a lot of his input. And I'm like, that's really good. I can't really shout on your shite.
Yeah. Not these days. I mean, but isn't that one of the things that's changed as well, Daz? When we were growing up, I was desperate to play. And I'd play at any time. I'd play in any position. I didn't care. Yeah. Whereas now, you look at especially younger players as well. I guess our generation who are still playing, we remember what it was like, and you will just go and play. But especially the younger generation coming through now, they don't have the same attitude to football, do they?
I think we pigeonhole players too early in a position. That's my big issue. I think parents will tell the coaches, "Oh, he's a right winger. Oh, is he? He's 7. Or he's 6. He's not anything yet. Let him play." And even like growing up, there was a very an English way you would pick players. If they were quick, they'd be up front. Yeah. If they could run all day midfield. I was at the back because I was short and fat. And that's generally how football went. Whoever was the tallest was in goal. And that's how football went in the 70s and 80s. And I think only now in the small-sided games, we've almost adopted a Dutch approach. And I think we need to adopt it even more and have players. I seen on Facebook the other week that a team was looking for elite players to play under 6s.
Elite?
What? And I was like, that's what's wrong with the game. That's what's wrong with the game.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the enjoyment. At the end of the day, you get a drop-off rate when kids get to sort of 14, 15, because they've had it drilled into them from such a young age, as you just said, Dan, from sort of 6 and 7. You've got coaches barking at them, and then you've obviously got the influence of parents on the touchline, which is also a difficulty. And the kids forget that what they enjoy about the game, because it's almost like, I'm going to go and get shouted at for an hour or 90 minutes, and it just drives them away. It should be all about enjoyment up to a certain age.
Well, you're right, because they're not differentiating between going to football and being shouted at, or staying at home and being on the PlayStation and being shouted at.
Absolutely.
You're getting the same result from your parents. You're not getting really any engagement. So unless you really love the game or you're really good at it, then why would you stay involved? But the problem is that I don't think you know that someone is a really good player at times until they get a little bit older. People just pick it up at different stages in their life. Some people are good really young, and some people, their learning curve just is different. And all of a sudden they pick it up at 16, 17, 18. And what we've talked a while ago about the academies and our view on that. But what you don't get is many players now coming into the game late because they've been involved in some way, or they've been involved all of their lives, because that's just the way it's done now. You don't really get scouts going to, amateur games. You don't get people hanging around the old boys like they used to pick up players, because that's just
their
not
loss,
the way it's
Simon. It's their loss. So, Greg, how did you make that transition from youth football into adult football?
It was actually a bit of made easier slightly. So when we set up, I'd had a couple of years out after running the team up to under 17s. I had a couple of years out, and I'd sort of qualified as a referee. So I did a couple of years as a referee, but I missed the bug of actually being on the touchline, being involved in actually running a team. So I worked at St Margaret's Academy in Egbert, and we wanted a former students team. Now you probably remember the original SMA Old Boys.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did play against them,
Yeah, so that was the original former students team, which was set up probably 60, 70 years ago. But that gradually became less and less to do with St Margaret's. Obviously, over time, players change and whatnot. So we wanted to set up what was, a former students team, so for old boys only initially. So we got that off the ground in 2011. So I think it was 19 at the time. And the County Premier League had actually set up an under-21 division. So it was like a new agenda with the FA to sort of bridge that gap we were talking about between sort of 16 and 21 as a sort of developmental league. So it was a good idea, I thought, at the time. The only problem was that they decided to put the kickoff times at 10:30 on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Now, half of them hadn't got in from town at that time. So trying to get lads up for a game at 10:30, obviously in an under-21 league, it was difficult. But we had I think we had 12 teams in the league to start with, which was really good. And we got the team off the ground. We had a really good side. It was a lot better than my two previous experiences with teams. We actually did win more than one game. So that was good. And that sort of helped the transition, really. So we did that for 4 years. And then, unfortunately, the league gradually sort of wound down to the point where there was only 5 teams left. And it sort of dissipated from there. But that was at the point where we moved into the Old Boys League. So we'd obviously got a mix of players who were just coming up to sort of 21. So ready to play open age football. And then we sort of brought in a few lads who'd left us years before, who were sort of early 20s, mid-20s. So the transition was made smoother by that. And I think that's an initiative they should probably look to bring back at some point.
I agree.
That transition.
I think that was brilliant. And what you also found was a lot of those lads who played in that league, because it was a decent standard, then stepped up into the county prem as well, because they were used to playing at a decent standard. I think part of the problem with amateur football is if you're not that committed and you want to go out on a Friday night and get hammered, or a Saturday night if you're playing Sundays, then you don't really want to be challenging yourself too much, and you don't want to be playing at a really good level. And the county prem is you're playing against players that probably could have been pro or have been semi-pro at some stage. They know how to play, they know how to train, they're generally fit. And generally, the reason why they've not made it is they like a beer, or they just don't have the commitment that is needed to make it. But actually, ability-wise, you've got some really good players. But I just think a lot of younger people now are just not really up for that kind of challenge. And especially when you're playing against really hard teams like, Waterloo Dock and people like that, where every time you go up against them, it's a really hard game. Do you really want that on a Saturday afternoon after you've been out on a Friday night? And I just think that mentality is changing. Everything I did Monday to Friday, didn't matter how busy I was or what was going on. It was all about Saturday.
Yeah.
All about playing footy. And we were like that for years. In fact, I still feel like that now. You see, it doesn't matter what's going on through the week. I'm looking forward to Saturday to play footy.
Yeah, I think society's probably changed a lot, hasn't it? In terms of, obviously, with the Premier League, you've got a lot of people will want to go and watch the match now. Putting games on at 12:30. I I mean, that doesn't help anyone, does it? You know, other than obviously the television market abroad, which is obviously what it's done for. But they're not taking into account the amateur game. When they stick a game on at 12 and 6 of my players end up going to a match. And it's like, well, you know, we're then left short. To me, they should be looking at working the professional game around supporting and sustaining the grassroots game. Because without the grassroots game, they wouldn't have the professional game. It's all linked.
We talked about that as well, didn't we? You talked about playing on Stanley Park, and the fact that the amount of money that's generated from the two clubs that are either side of Stanley Park, and actually when you look at the facilities there, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Why would you not invest in that area to then generate more football, to get more football being played around the city, right outside of the two main grounds? And I know Thomas has got much more knowledge about what's going on in terms of investment from Liverpool and Everton. But I think that is an area where they've totally missed the trick.
The disappointing thing for me was that they've obviously had Everton's old training ground at Belfield, and they've obviously got Melwood. Now Liverpool are moving to Kirkby, but they've sold both sites for housing.
Yeah.
Now they should have been centre of excellence for amateur football. Liverpool and Everton gift them to the county FA and say, look, you know, I mean, imagine the you know, we could get the level of Merseyside grassroots football up even higher than what it already is, and it's one of the best, if not the best, in the country. And we can tell that by how well teams do in the national cups. But you know, it's disappointing that you've got those facilities there that wouldn't have needed any investment whatsoever. It would have just been a case of handing the keys over, and they've built houses, and that's a disappointment, I think.
Well, you touched on it a few weeks ago, Simon, didn't you? To say what we seem to forget is that Liverpool and Everton are running a business, and you're talking multi-million-pound deals for these sites that you know, the housing companies that are coming in to build on them. They're not just going to hand it over, are they? And that's sometimes we forget that they are a business, and you know, it's all about profit, and the profit that they bring in helps to sustain and push that club to greater heights, hopefully.
You're spot on, and I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. But I do think in this case, what they'll get from selling that land is less than what they'll pay for a half-decent player.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Especially, you think about how big Melwood is. It's a decent size, but it's not crazy big. They'll sell that for a decent amount of money. I don't know what it'll be, but it's probably less than what they paid for Van Dijk. And then you think about the players that they've found in the city and have brought up through the city, and to Greg's point, what we could do with developing those players to having that facility. But then the other side of it is whether the FA would use it the right way as well, and I guess that's another question. But I do think that, again, it's an indication of the fact that the perspective of the clubs is not invest in grassroots football first. It's profits come before anything else.
Yeah, and I think the FA need to put out some sort of charter that every Premier League club has to invest a certain amount of either time, money, however they want to do it. There should be a 10-point plan, if you like, for Premier League clubs and Championship clubs for their local community. Because if that doesn't happen, we're going to lose grassroots. We're going to lose facilities. The hubs in Liverpool are great, but they're expensive, and the upkeep of them are expensive. And for me, I love grass pitches. I'm not a massive fan of 4G. And I think what we've got to be careful of as well with the 4G is in 10 to 15 years' time, how many injuries will we get from that than we compare to what we get with the grass? And now I spent time in America coaching, and they use a lot of 4G or a lot of artificial grass. The amount of knee issues that go on every single year is frightening, of young players who are getting bad injuries through the facilities they use. And I think we have to be careful that although 4G is great for training on, I'm not a massive fan for playing actual matches on. I think we should invest properly. I think the two Premier League clubs' training facilities would have been that investment. Because Walton Hall Park is brilliant. The pitches there are brilliant. We need to make that the standard if we're going to move forward with grassroots football.
Yeah, I think the reality is that until they find some way of making that investment happen, then, I mean, you look at some of the facilities around some of the great areas that we used to play in as well, and they're not very good, but it didn't really matter to us when we were growing up. We'd play anywhere. Yeah. But I think, as to your point, Greg, society has changed and people's expectations of amateur football has changed. And I think that you've got to invest in that if you want to get them interested in the game, to pull them away from the PlayStations and whatever else they're playing.
Yeah. You're in a similar position to me, Greg. I've noticed you saying before you're a Liverpool season ticket holder. So I've been involved in football for a number of years, and I've got a season ticket for Liverpool. I've had it for 20 odd years now, and I was missing so many matches due to my commitments to football and the amateur game. So, and I was losing so much money because they're not cheap. So I ended up started selling it at the beginning of the year when I knew I was committed to a team or we were going to carry on. And now I feel a bit cheeky asking for it back when we've just won the league. So I'm not going to do that. But what do you do? How do you cope with getting to the game, or what you do with regards to keeping your ticket?
Yeah, my team always comes first. So I'll always be on the touchline ahead of going to Anfield.
I would as well, Greg. I would as well.
I mean, I sort of I look at the fixtures and see monthly basis. I've got a couple of family members or friends who will go when I can't go, basically. I'd always put my team first.
Yeah, but I think that maybe that's something that's changing as well. I used to go to the match when I was younger, but I stopped once I got to like 15, 16. Because I started playing as well. So once you started playing, I always thought, well, if I'm going to commit to someone, then I'm not going to commit. And then the following week, I'm going to watch Liverpool because it's a big game. That never made any sense to me. I'd much rather play.
Yeah, I think nowadays as well, running an amateur team, you have to have a much bigger squad than you would have had probably when you were playing a few years back. I think I had 35, 40 players registered last season to get 14 available on a Saturday. Yeah. And it's because of people's different work commitments. People go in the match is another one. I don't think football is the number one on most people's priority list. No, as you were saying, Si, compared to what it used to be.
Definitely not. But again, I think you've kind of got to accept that, and the way to deal with it is to have a bigger squad. We talk about that all the time in the vets. You have to have an even bigger squad in the vets because you're talking about players that pick up injuries easier as well. So it's even more difficult. So then we get to you get involved in St. Margaret's, and so how long have you now been involved in that team?
Yeah, so it's 9 years now. So we're going into our 10th season next season, which I think running a one-team club for that length of time is an achievement in itself, really, in terms of surviving and sustaining and the turnover of players. I love my statistics, so I've got like every stat on goals scored, conceded, wins, everything. Everyone who's played a game, I can tell you how many games they played for the club and all that. But we've had over 100 players play for us in that time, and I think to myself, well, it's great that we've been able to offer amateur football to over 100 people in Liverpool. And we've sort of branched out a bit now, where we're not just old boys of the school. It's more open. Because it's harder to sustain, I think, over a longer period of time. So we've got lads coming in from like universities who come to the city for say 3 years and looking for a team, and obviously that takes your standard up again, because if you've got lads who are playing at university level, obviously naturally fit, wanting to playing on a Saturday is their priority, because that's what they've signed up for probably at university with coaching courses or whatever. So it's coming up to 10 years now, so it's a long time.
And how have you coped with the fact that you haven't been able to play for the last, or get involved for the last 3 months?
It's just really strange. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've enjoyed having a little bit of a prolonged break after such a long time running the team. But I think it's starting to get to the point now where I'm sort of thinking, right, look forward to getting back out there on a Saturday and being on the touchline.
Have you got some consistent lads that have been with you for years?
Yeah, so we've got about 4 or 5 who've played over 150 games for us, which at any level is impressive. We've got a striker, Jay Bradley. He's our skipper. He played with us in our very first game, and he's still with us now. His goal record is absolutely ridiculous. I think he's got 150 goals in 151 games.
Wow.
It's just absolutely incredible, at amateur level to have that sort of goals to game ratio. So we've been lucky, really. We've had some top players.
Yeah, that's similar to Darren's goal record, isn't it, Dad?
Yeah, I like to do more minor percentage. So every shot I've had, I've scored.
That's a good way of looking at it, actually.
Stats don't lie, Greg. You're right. Stats don't lie.
I haven't scored, so I'm with you, Darren.
No, I've had 1 shot and 1 goal. Stats
You've got more than me.
So having a group of lads like that have been together for years has got to be great in terms of the kind of camaraderie and all that stuff. And I'm sure you have a good laugh. But one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about is about kind of that relationship that you've built as well. So not so long ago now, you went through some life changes in that you were telling people about your the fact that you were coming out. You'd come out to your family, and then you came out to your teammates at St. Margaret's. Talk us through how that went, because it's one of those things that I'm sure people that we've played with at some stage in their life would come out, or maybe not. But I've never been around someone in a changing room that has. And I think that's such a big and brave thing to do. And you had some challenges in that process mentally as well. I'm interested to hear how you went through that process, because I think from what I know, you'd come out to your family first, and then you came out to your teammates.
Yeah, so I think going back a bit earlier, I think the first sort of thoughts and sort of feelings, as you're growing up, obviously things are changing, whatever, and maybe sort of realising that I might be different from other people, or is the stuff I'm thinking about the same as everyone else? Is it normal part of growing up? And one of the things that frustrated me was the lack of education. Now, in school, you taught about same-sex relationships, but you're not taught about same-sex relationships, sorry. And it was difficult, because if you don't know about something, you then question, am I normal? What am I going through? Is everyone else going through at the same time? So I think it was a difficult period, certainly towards the end of my school life. And obviously towards sort of 16, 18, those thoughts and feelings weren't going away. So then you're starting to realise, okay, maybe I am gay, but I didn't want to admit that to myself. And then the next phase of that is shame and embarrassment, and almost a lot. I mean, self-hate. It was literally like I couldn't stand the thought that I might be, and I wanted to try and do anything I could to not be. And it was a really tough sort of period in my life. And football served as a really welcome distraction in keeping my mind occupied in doing the so many different roles that I was doing. But then it sort of got, I think I was 23, and it got to the point where even my boss in work had sort of come back from summer holidays, and I just wasn't myself. I'm quite a sort of positive, bubbly person, and I wasn't being like that in work. And my boss, who was a good friend of mine, Jeff, he was worried about me, and he sort of started the conversation, trying to ask the question without asking the question, if you like, to sort of just gauge where I was, because he'd had friends who'd gone through similar, and eventually, after a few conversations, I did admit to him that I was gay. And
had you already admitted it to yourself before that point? Had you already come to terms with it in terms of how you feel, or was that almost the point at which you're like, okay?
That was the point at which I accepted it. Was just telling that one person took such a weight off my shoulders. I can't even describe it. It was almost like a feeling of like adulation. It was like you scored. I'm not one for scoring goals, but it was like I'd scored a goal.
I can tell you, Greg, what's that like when I scored.
So it was like that. Just telling one person had such a big impact. And then it was a case of gauging. He sort of said to me, don't rush anything. You have to do things at your own pace. You tell people when you're ready to tell people. Obviously, he wasn't going to say anything to anyone. And so it was a case of, it took about a month or so, I'd say, to sort of get my head around how was I going to approach it all with my family. And then I just I decided really that it was just one weekend. I just said, right, on the Friday, I said to Jeff, I'm going to tell my family this weekend. And my parents aren't together, so I was going to have to do it twice.
So inconsiderate, isn't it?
Why did he get divorced 18 years earlier? Bloody selfish. So anyway, I sort of said to myself, ironically, I can always remember the date, because it was the day of Jurgen Klopp's first game as Liverpool manager. And it was Liverpool v Tottenham at White Hart Lane. And I'd said to my dad, I'll come round, and watch the match in mine. So anyway, he comes round, and I'm literally like, the telly's over there, and I'm literally sat staring at that wall for 90 minutes thinking, how the hell am I going to bring this up? And then Tottenham, you better not bloody score here. Because I was thinking, if he's not going to handle that and Liverpool losing in the same day. So
it's brilliant, the fact that you're comparing those two things.
Judging it by how Liverpool won or got beat.
Yeah, absolutely. So thankfully we played out a 0-0 draw, which I was celebrating inside. We've drawn. We didn't lose. I can do this. So sort of turn the volume down on the TV after the game. My dad was like looking at me. He loves the post-match analysis. He was like, "What are you doing?" Gary Neville's just come on with his smartphone. He was just about, and I said, "Oh, I need to have a chat." And he was like, "Oh, right, okay." So anyway, he sort of spent 20 minutes going all around the houses as to actually getting to the point I was trying to make. And obviously sort of told him. And obviously you don't know what... the reason I hadn't told anyone for so long was fear of rejection. Because you don't know what your family are going to think. You don't know what your friends are going to think. It's when you're straight, you don't come out as straight. So you don't have to go through that acceptance. Whereas when you're gay, it's like, well, people have an opinion on it. You know, not always a good one. So I didn't know where it was going to go. Thankfully, it was, although he was shocked, because in the stereotypical sense, people were surprised I was gay when they found out. So it was shock, but it was immediately brought back round with an acceptance of it. You know, it doesn't change anything between us. You know, he's still my son and all that. And obviously that you can imagine the sort of feel, you know, I broke down because it was such I'd been having these feelings for 10 years and you sort of locked away. And I always say I was in Narnia, you know, I was having frigging dinner with Mr. Tumnus every day for 10 years. And it was like finally sort of smashing open that sort of closet door, if you like, and saying, do you know what, this is who I am. I haven't got a choice in it. You know, this is what I am. It's who I am. And so to have that acceptance from my dad, who I'm very close to, was a massive relief, really.
I was going to say, that's got to be an amazing feeling. And you just mentioned something then, which, you know, people's perception of, you said people were surprised because I'm not stereotypically gay. That's just about your internal mental structure and how you see these things. I went through a similar thing with an uncle of mine who I'd spent a lot of time with, and he came out at, I think he must have been maybe 20, 21. I was absolutely shocked. I had no idea at all, but only because in my mind, he wasn't the stereotypical image of what I thought at that stage gay people were. It was like, well, he doesn't fit that profile. So it was a real shock to me also that I'd been around him when he'd been with women as well. So you kind of, you're not putting two and two together at all. But in his head, he'd been dealing with mental torture for years because he was trying to paint this picture of a life that actually he hated. And he didn't want to be involved in that. And then he had to go through the process of coming out to his family, big family, typical big Scouse family. And they all accepted and love him for it. But that's got to be, when you come out, when you go through that process and you have that initial conversation with your family, must be an amazing feeling when they come to terms with it.
Yeah, I mean, the buzz that I was on from after that weekend, you know, I told my mum and stepdad the next day, and obviously they sort of, I told them that I was happy for them to tell the rest of the family. The sort of feeling of just sheer relief and sort of feeling happy for the first time. Obviously, you felt happy over your lifetime with different things that happened. But it was a different happy. It was a totally different sense of like, I could actually be who I was all of the time instead of having to hide that away for so long. And sort of, as I said, being ashamed and sort of a lot of self-hate over the years, you know, suffer with depression because of it. And not wanting to go out. You know, I didn't really drink until after I came out because I always felt I had to be in control. And obviously when you drink, you're more likely to sort of, you know, say something to someone. And I just didn't want to put myself in that position. So when I came out, I got absolutely hammered.
Right.
One pint.
Well, what's interesting though, I think you touched on it and Simon did as well, but how media plays a really important role in what people presume and think about gay and how people. You said something about people didn't think you were gay, and Simon come out and said about his uncle and stuff. And it's media, and now of course we have social media, and it's almost like we're trained to see people on what, if they're gay or not, and as though it comes with like a badge or something. And I find that remarkable. And what I do find remarkable is that as well, we should be role models for people, particularly children. So I'm a primary school teacher, and we've had instances in schools over the years, in lots of schools, and my friends know, where a child has confided in a teacher or an adult in the school about their sexuality. And I think that's massive, and I think that's really important. But I also think the media has a massive job to do here.
Absolutely. We learn to become more socially responsible, and that's caring about what other people may be feeling. You know, one of the difficulties I found, and going back into a footballing context, was, and on the schoolyard, is you hear derogatory comments made about gay people, or that's gay, or, you know, other comments. I'm not going to say them, but you know that the link to the, you know, being gay is being wrong, and that was always the association. So then, as you can imagine, sort of being 14, 15 on the schoolyard, and your mates even saying it, and not necessarily saying it to be derogatory or homophobic, but saying those comments immediately puts that seed of doubt in your mind. Well, I might be, and are they not going to accept me for who I am?
Yeah, and I also think what media does very well is, if you're interested in a certain thing, in an aspect, so for example, the women's game, which I was involved in for years, if you played football and you were a woman, you were labelled something. If you like the theatre, you were labelled something. And it's all these labels we put on people because that's what society dictates to us. And I think we need to break that down and break that barrier and accept that people have all types of interests, no matter what the age, gender, or anything sexuality.
But I also think that family plays a big part in that, doesn't it? And how it's everything we've got is learned behaviour. And then what happens is, as you get older, you make up your own mind about, you know, religion, sexuality, how you interact with people around society, what kind of person you're going to be. But it's all a learned behaviour. And I think family plays a massive part in it. I'm lucky that I'm from a very diverse family. So I've been around gay men and women all of my life. So it never really seemed any different to me. It was just normal.
Yeah.
So then you hear things like, you mentioned it before, Greg, that, you know, especially in the playground, that's gay, people would say. Yeah. What even does that mean? But it doesn't mean anything, because that's just something that's a learned behaviour. Yeah. It's not something that all of a sudden, it's like, we've got an awful lot going on with this Black Lives Matter movement at the moment. It's all learned behaviour. People aren't born racist. It's a learned behaviour. And it's about how your family and how society reacts, and media plays a big part in it. But I think family is a massive part of it.
I totally agree. I mean, from my perspective, I worked obviously in a school for 8 years. And you know, Darren, from yourself, there's a lot of expectations on schools nowadays. It's like, well, schools can teach them that, and schools can teach them that, and schools can teach them that. The schools have only got so many hours in a day. You know what I mean? It's like, as you say, Simon, it's absolutely vital that families teach their children right from wrong, and acceptance and inclusion and diversity, and it becomes the norm, and that's how we get around it.
I also think, sorry, Stone Thomas.
So when you came out to your parents and they let your family know, did it have a negative impact on anyone in your family, or did anyone take it badly, or was everyone, you know, really supportive and get behind you and stuff? How did everyone take it?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, I think you get to the point where you've sort of gone through the self-hate, and then you get to self-acceptance, and then it's coming out. And when you get to self-acceptance, you're then ready for a fight, because it's like, well, if you don't accept me for who I am, you can do one. And it's that sort of, it's a strange journey to go on. It really is. So I was almost like, well, okay, prepare yourself for the worst, and then obviously anything else is a bonus. So it was like, I'd obviously prepared, you know, not saying that my family are homophobic, but you just don't know what they're going to say. But absolutely could not fault any single person, any member of my family, any of my friends. They were all absolutely brilliant, you know, and I've been from that day on. So I've been lucky.
So how did it link into the football when you came out to your parents and your family, and then how did the link spread across to your football? Because didn't you pack in?
Yeah, so that summer, where I'd had a sort of dark summer and I really struggled with depression before I came back to work and told my boss, I'd actually taken over as manager of the old boys. So me and my dad had sort of swapped roles, if you like. He wanted a bit of a back seat for a bit. And I sort of wanted to crack at the sort of main job. So we were still under 21 at the time. And come back, and football still served as that distraction for the first sort of month or two. And then as I've got all this going on in the background, my head's just completely fried. And it, you know from managing a team, Tom, you stood in front of those players giving your team talk. If you're, say, 5% less than your normal self, it's noticeable. Because
I'm always
players
like that. These will back me up. It depends on what I've had for my breakfast, whether I've had a good night's sleep. There's loads of factors that change my performance.
But Greg, when he's on fire, it's beautiful to watch.
So it was gradually noticeable that I didn't feel myself delivering a team talk. And even just looking people in the eye, it becomes more difficult when you're not sort of feeling as though you're being your true self. And it was about a month after it sort of come out to the family, and I think I'd obviously been on such a roller coaster of emotions that I was just completely drained. And it just got to the point where I was like, I can't stand up and give a team talk. I was actually fearing doing it. And part of that fear was still that sense of, what are they going to think if they find out? Are they going to want to play for a gay manager? Are they going to see it as are they going to be embarrassed? Are they going to be ashamed? Are they going to want to leave? And that's obviously me prejudging their opinion, which is unfair of me to do. But it's just what happens when you're going through that process. So I just sort of said to my dad, look, I need to take a step back. I'm going to have to just have some time away. And so my dad took over again as caretaker manager. He's doing Howard Wilkinson.
I hope he didn't do as well as you, Greg, because that's an issue then.
Well, my record was terrible, to be fair, in that short period of time. So he's been manager ever since. So
that says it all.
Yeah, he's the longest caretaker manager in the history of football. So I sort of stepped away, and I didn't know when I was going to go back at the time, and I just needed a break, to be honest. And obviously, with the Great British weather, we didn't really play many games, to be honest, between December and February. So I didn't miss much. And then it sort of got to April time, and it was actually my birthday, and I was sort of like, you know what, I'm missing my footy now, and the players who've played for me and I've known them for years, they deserve to know, because they're important to me, and they're all mates, in that sense. So I was driving home from visiting family on my birthday, pulled the car over, turned the engine off, just the legal bit, and then took my phone out.
We don't have many police watchers. Thomas has sorted that.
And then I literally started texting every player, and I sent them a text to sort of say I wanted to explain why I've not been around, why I stepped back. And obviously I've been going through, bit of a struggle, sort of coming out to my family. And I felt like it was the right time to sort of tell you that, I've come out as gay, and I didn't know what the team would think. So I felt it was better in everyone's interest to step away. And obviously, again, like with the family, you don't know what the reaction is. You don't know whether people are going to reply. You don't know what they're going to reply. But everyone to a man texted me back, and it wasn't, oh, that sound. It wasn't a one-line response. Every one of them took the time to send me a pretty detailed message back as to how sorry they were that I'd left and that I felt I had to leave. How sorry they were that I'd gone through that for such a long time and I couldn't sort of be myself. And finally, get yourself back to the club, because, it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't change our opinion of you as a person. You're still Greg, the person we respect, who, runs the team week in, week out for us, and, who we all enjoy playing for. And I think it was at that point I sort of realised that me being gay doesn't affect my ability to run a football team, to, be a coach, to referee. It's just who I am. Yeah. It's not. It shouldn't have any effect. So I'm eternally grateful to all the lads, really, because they knew how important the team is to me. In fact, they've been running for so long. So to have their acceptance, it was brilliant.
How has it changed over time with the team? You go back, you start managing, go back to being secretary again and start getting involved?
Yeah, literally. I think we had a game the following week, and they were like, "You need to get yourself down. You know, we want you on the touchline." Won. We actually beat Bootle, which was a great achievement at the time. Bootle were going for the title, I think. I think we finished third that year, but I think we beat them 6-2. And all the I sort of came during the game, so I didn't want to interfere with the pre-match stuff. And then, you know, every player sort of came over to me, gave me a hug after the game, said, you know, it's great to have you back, you know, and sorry, you weren't there and stuff. And it was great. It was having that feeling back of, you know, being back where I belong, which is involved in football, which is what I've done all my life.
Right, can I ask you a question?
Oh.
No, Darren, you can't.
I've been waiting 45 minutes to get that in. Did the county FA help you, support you in coming out, or did you go to see them at any point? What was their involvement at any time?
So their involvement came a couple of years later. So we've got you're probably aware of the Rainbow Laces campaign.
Yeah.
And that's run every year around sort of November time. And it was 2018, and they asked me if I would be willing to share my story as part of the Rainbow Laces campaign for Liverpool County FA. Because you don't very often get many grassroots stories, if you like, of that sort of journey that I'd gone on. So that was great to work with the guys down at Liverpool County FA. Put my story together in my own words. And then shared that with them, and then it was actually picked up by the FA as well. So it was shared on the National FA website at the time, and it was quite heartwarming because I had quite a lot of messages on social media from people up and down the country who'd sort of read my story that haven't been shared across all the media channels, and sort of saying, you know, how they were going through the same thing, and that. It was great to see that I'd been accepted, and it's given them the confidence to actually potentially approach their teammates to tell them their situation and they're in the same boat. I've always been of that mindset that if sharing my story, like doing this now, if that helps one person who's listening, then it's done its job, because I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I've gone through in that sort of times that I've hated myself and all that sort of thing and worried about what people think. It's a positive ending to that story.
Yeah. But you say there's not many stories of this at grassroots. There's not many stories of it in the professional game either. And we earlier this week, someone in our Premier League footballer, we don't know who it is, has written an open letter to announce that he's gay. Hasn't actually given his name because he doesn't think he's ready for his teammates or his manager to know at this stage, but has come out to his family and written this open letter. But do you not think that is an indication of the fact that actually there's probably loads of people going through this and they don't know how to deal with it? They certainly don't feel comfortable in a quite kind of chauvinistic environment to come out and be honest with each other. And actually it may take a Premier League footballer or someone high profile to come out to really start the change process.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? It's like Ronaldo wearing the latest set of boots. The kids follow suit, and I think football, the impact that professional footballers can have on society is huge. You know, one player coming out and talking about accepting a teammate if they're gay, and a few of them did do it. A few of the high-profile players did do it on the last campaign, talking about, you know, if their teammates came out, it wouldn't change anything. And by them doing that, that will have changed some perspectives, because you do have maybe smaller-minded people who would change their opinion based on a professional footballer's viewpoint. And I think, although I don't like the way it's gone, obviously, with what's been in the papers the last few days of speculating who it might be, because that's not good for anybody. You know, there's nothing, I found nothing worse than the thought of anybody finding out that I was gay. So let alone that being on the national press. And, you know, as soon as a story goes online, you've got people commenting saying, oh, it could be this player and it could be that player. And, oh, well, he's got that hairstyle, so that means he could, you know, I mean, what's that about? So I think it's so important that the professional game supports as and when, and it will happen. It might not be for a while, but it will happen when footballers do come out, that they are completely protected and supported in every way possible.
Yeah,
the issue that I always think that's putting players off is that the first high-profile player that comes out is going to get absolutely hounded by the press, and that may cause them massive issues mentally, professionally, and just the status that they're going to get becoming this like global icon, because that's what it's going to turn into, of being the first professional Premier League footballer to come out. I could see the stresses and the pressure being humongous, and that's the reason, possibly as well as their own personal feelings towards it, stopping them wanting to come out, because it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I think we had Thomas Hitzlberger for Villa after he stopped playing. He came out as gay, and of course we had the whole high profile before the Premier League was Justin Fashanu, who sadly passed away in '98. And I think there is an issue where I think I would love someone to come out high profile in the Premier League, because I think it will break so many barriers down for other people from grassroots, non-league, right the way through the leagues to then come out. There was a guy at Leeds, was it something Brady? Was it someone? He was an American guy.
Rogers.
Thank you. Rogers came out, and then he went back to America because was there something about the abuse he was getting? And of course, now with social media, that abuse is magnified by so many because of it's easy access to these people. So I think it's, I'm hoping, and I would love it to come out who it is, and people stand by them, and they do become that person who breaks down the barriers, because we always need one. We only need one to break down the barrier. Same with race and anything like that, you know, and we can stand together.
I think one of the things for me is that obviously we're seeing that, I mean, racism in football is it's not gone, but it's improved from where it was 30 years, 40 years ago. And it's still on that journey, but it's got to take a prolonged and sustained campaign. One of the things I find with the Rainbow Laces is it's basically 2 weekends in a season. So for the other 30 weeks of the season, 36 weeks of the season, there's no mention of it. So unless we talk about it more, it's not going to break them barriers down. And as you say, Darren, it's going to take one. It might take a group of people. A group of people might get together. They were all going through the same thing, and that will sort of soften the sort of issue in terms of being targeted and handled, as you said, Thomas. Yeah. But it needs more than just a 2-week campaign, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's almost like a tokenistic, and I would like to see it right the way through the year. And same in education, we always have these almost like Black History Month, or we have, different days throughout the year, should we say, or different months to celebrate something. But it should be integrated in the curriculum throughout the year and at different times of the year, because for that 1 month, it's high profile and it's great. But then after that, it goes in the back burner again. And I think that's where the curriculum and education needs to come into it, to make sure that it's continuously throughout, from Key Stage 2 into Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4 and beyond. And I think that's what needs to happen now. We have show racism in the red card, we have Islamophobia, we have all these other things, but actually they only come in for a short time, and we need sustainability. We also need to have the Rainbow Laces campaign. They should be accessible in all shops throughout the year, because I don't see that either. I've just looked on the FA website. I've seen an agenda up until 2016. I don't see what's next. You know, we're in 2020 now. What's next and what's high profile? I see they've put posters out. I go to a lot of football games, lots of sports centres. There's no posters. So it's almost like we need to do more to make sure that it's not easy to come out, but it's certainly more accessible to come out because it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I think as well, it's important for clubs to adopt an inclusive approach. And that's whether you're a youth team or an open age team. Is that, I mean, I was listening to your podcast on the mental health side of things, and obviously making sure that you, obviously as a manager, Tom, you were speaking about how you wanted to make sure you were approachable, but then it's sometimes it's hard to approach someone and speak to them if you think there's something wrong. Yeah. It's all about creating an environment that is accepting of anyone and everyone, no matter who or what you are, and that should be drilled into every football club from the minute they're set up. You know, and you've got clubs that are huge. You know, you've got clubs like Bolton, and you've got hundreds of teams. You know, I've no doubt that their ethos throughout is an inclusive one, but it needs to be right the way across the board, from the professional game right the way down, and obviously back up again.
Yeah, it's the only way you really get it addressed, isn't it? So you're currently at Cheshire FA?
I am.
And
yeah.
that's the day job?
It is, yeah.
What's interesting that's going on over there right now?
It's all planning to get football back up and running, really. We had a bit of a tough few months, obviously, with no football being played. But I think we're hoping that the FA will be releasing some sort of roadmap back to getting playing again in the next week or two.
Yeah, give us some hope, please.
Yeah. And that's all we want. If we can have a date.
Yeah, give me about 3 months to get fit. Ish.
Yeah, it'd be good to get back. The sooner we get a game going, the better. So, Greg, you've been around football for years. I love the fact that you were involved in running a team so early, and you've had some, really interesting stuff happen in your life. And one of the things that we ask people when they come on the show is, what's your greatest memory, your greatest football moment? And I'm sure you've had a lot. Can you share yours with us?
Yeah, so mine's going to come from the amateur game. I'll set the scene for you. So it was 2018, summer of, and with the weather, I can remember the weather that year was the worst amateur football weather I've ever seen. I don't think we actually played from November till the end of March. It was that bad, and there was no 3G pitches at that point because they hadn't opened. So we reached April and we'd only played, I think it was 10 games in the league. Wow. So we still had, on top of, as well as cup games, we had 17 games to play. So thankfully the league gave us permission to keep playing into May. And then it ended up where it kept going into June. It was absolutely mad. So I think we played every Saturday midweek for 2 months non-stop, April and May. And it came down to the final game of the season in the second weekend in June. There was 3 teams could win our league title in the Old Boys League Division 2. So it was a high profile, competition.
Of course.
Sky Sports were there.
Yeah. Pink Echo came out for the special edition.
So you had ourselves, who were in 3rd place on this final day, Collegiate Old Boys, who you might know, who were 2nd in the league, and we had Wood Street, who were top of the league. So we were 3 points behind Wood Street, but we had a superior goal difference. And the final game of the season was us against Collegiate. So if we drew, Wood Street won the league. If Collegiate won, they won the league. And if we won the league. So it was literally, you had Wood Street on the touchline watching, ready to run on the pitch and celebrate if they won it, because they couldn't do anything more. And then obviously our two sides, winner takes all, basically. So we go into this game and it was about 30 degrees. I kid you not, it was baking hot. And the referee was none other than Steve Stewart.
No way. He loves the drama, the Stevie.
He's brought a ringer in. Mate from the FA, can you send the Stevie down?
So obviously it turns up, Dave's cracking the flags. 2 teams had the best teams out. It was on 3G. We played at St John Bosco, which is a great pitch up there. So gets underway. We went 1-0 up. About 20 minutes in, great goal by our little winger Mike. He ran through and slotted. And then Collegiate went and equalised about 5 minutes before half time. Like called John Greenway. Now talking about amateur players who are excellent. John Greenway, I don't know if you ever played against him, but what a cracking striker he is at the amateur level. He's bagged in 40, 50 goals nearly every season since I've known him. Absolutely outstanding player. And he bagged the equaliser. And I remember a shout from Collegiate, which they later regretted, which is, "These have bottled it."
The classic. A good amateur shout, that.
Yeah, it was the perfect shout. Because we went down the other end and scored. So our skipper Jay, the one who scored all them goals, he sort of ran from the halfway line, knocked it past the centre half, and just sprinted round and slotted in. So 2-1 at the break, going really well. My dad had his little tactical input, which fair play to him. Changed the formation, nullified John Greenway, and came out second half and completely blitzed them. We played some cracking football that day. Went 3-1, 4-1, 5-1. they got a late one at the end, finished 5-2. But that was the first, obviously, when the full-time whistle goes, just that feeling of winning the league in the context of what, playing 17 games in 3 months, haven't taken it to the last day, you had 3 teams that could win it. And to put in the performance we did, because you often see in those sorts of games a really drab affair and it's a 1-0, or it was 2 cracking sides, played out a great game, and we won the league, and it was the first time me and my dad had won a trophy together.
Wow, that's
so it was one of those
excellent.
One of those special moments that we'll never forget. Got a photo, together with the trophy, and it's one of those. It's exactly why you run a football team, for the moments like that.
Greg, who kept the trophy?
Steve Stewart. No, we had to give it back after a year, but it was me that kept it, and it was tried to place on the mantelpiece for a full year. That was a brilliant, and by far and away my best moment in football.
Love that. I mean, especially because you did it with your half-father as well. First trophy win, lads that you've managed for a while. That's brilliant. That's what it's all about.
Definitely.
Did Stevie Stewart give you any dodgy penalties?
He didn't, to be fair. I don't think he had any cautions. He was on top form, as you'd expect.
Don't ask Thomas about penalties and Stevie Stewart. He could go on for a while.
Was there a controversial one, was it, Tom?
Don't bring it up, Greg. It's a podcast in itself.
We're playing in a semi-final, and one of our centre forwards got dragged down for a definite penalty, and Stevie didn't give it at the end of the game.
No.
Yeah.
Thomas has never forgiven him. His appearance on the podcast made up for it a little bit, but we certainly didn't get there. All right, Greg. Well, listen. Thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. Love the fact that you come on to share your story with us. I think it's a great story. It's one that we can we'll all support. I'd love to get involved, or get the South involved, with the Rainbow Laces campaign. Thomas is obviously part of the committee. And I think that'd be really good to get our team involved in it. And then also it might be worth us arranging a friendly as well at some stage.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Steve Stewart as referee. Last minute penalty.
Steady. So don't mind the friendly.
Thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Just want to say, lads, the podcast's superb. Really enjoying it, and keep up the good work. And thanks very much for inviting me on. Really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Cheers,
Greg.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
What a great interview that was.
Oh, what a great guy! Yeah. What was interesting is he was so natural on the podcast.
Yeah, it was almost like he'd been doing it all of his life.
Yeah, for the last 3 months anyway.
I wanted some tips off him how to talk properly.
Yeah, he was brilliant. Really good story about how he's been involved in football for all those years. I think he's one of those people that we've relied on over the years, that are always around the big amateur clubs in Liverpool that help out and always involved, doing all the work in the background, so then we can turn up and just play that.
Yeah, I think he's an unsung hero, in many ways with what they do. Like you and I say, have just played for 30, for whatever years we've played, and you just expect that the fixtures to happen, the referees to be there. You expect all that, and you forget sometimes that these guys behind the scene, it's a weekly job on top of their own job.
Yeah, I don't know how he juggles all his different hats that he's doing, and actually has a social life. He seems to be that busy.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's a referee as well. I mean, I don't know whether he's just a glutton for punishment, because that's a thankless job, isn't it?
Honest, he's going on me wall of hate.
What a great story as well, and must have been difficult for him, no doubt, especially in the football community in terms of the banter and the changing rooms. But and fair play to everyone who that's his old boys team who stuck by him during those difficult times. Yeah, really, really great guy.
Rightly so.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. And I think we talked a bit on there about how there needs to be more effort from people around football to get involved in things like the Rainbow Laces campaign. I think that's a great idea. I think it's something that we should take on and get our footy lads involved, because it's got to be tough. It's got to be tough for people like him that have been through that, talking about mental anguish for years. Yeah. Fighting with your own kind of issues around it, and then also having to worry about how society is going to accept you. And around a football team, we all know what it's like in the changing rooms. We all know that there is nothing that's sacred. So what you wear and what you've done, what you've said, who you are, what you've tweeted, whatever it may be, you're going to get hammered about it on a Saturday afternoon. And I'm sure that there was a lot of banter with him, but it's great to see that those lads have supported him through that process, as they should. But good to see.
And we only hope that a higher, if you like, profile star comes out and as coming out and gay to really cement what's going on with the rainbow laces and different projects that the FA have got up on board.
Yeah. It's, the reality is that we've probably played with players who are going through the same thing over the years, or you've managed players, Thomas, that have been going through the same thing and haven't felt comfortable coming out. I know that I'd be very supportive if any of our playing colleagues were to come out, and so people should be. But great to share the story. It's a good platform for him to come on. As you say, Thomas, he was an absolute natural, and it seems like he could do that all day.
Just Simon, I didn't like when he said he wouldn't answer me question. What's all that about? For me, it was wrong.
Oh, here we go. Buzz red bingo. All right, so I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a good one. Darren, do you want to give us your final thoughts?
I think it's great he came on and shared his experience, and hopefully that will help other people going through something similar. And there are people you can talk to. And there are friends and families who will support you, and we will always support stuff like that.
Brilliant.
Thomas?
I'd just like to thank him for coming on. He's highlighting it to our people and our listeners, what a big decision and how it was for him to come out. Just want to thank him, and well done to everyone that gave him support at St. Margaret's.
Yeah, he was brilliant. Definitely, let's plan a friendly with them at some stage. It sounds like he's got a decent team and a decent setup there. Been through massive things in his life. Great that he feels comfortable coming on the podcast and talking about it. We try and cover some serious topics every so often. This is another one of them. And it's great that we've got a group of listeners that I'm sure will appreciate us having that conversation, him being open about it and sharing the story with us. And hopefully we'll bump into him again at some point before the season next year, and maybe give them a kick in at some point. Yeah? All right, lads. Enjoyed that. See you on the next one.
Speak to you soon, guys. Bye.
Later.